Hello and welcome to today's podcast. I'm Suzanne Moore and I'm the Autistic Project Manager. And today I just want to talk a little bit about what's in a name. So for autistic people, words are really important and we will take you quite literally depending on what you say. But there are a number of terms and terminology that are used for autistic people. And I just want to go through that a bit today because I think that we're quite often misunderstood. Now, I'm not going to talk about all of them, but there are some of them where we are misunderstood. So when we're really stressed and overstimulated, it can look like anger. And it's probably a bit of a stereotype that people will say that autistic people are displaying anger. They might be non-verbal and still displaying anger, but we're specifically in this podcast talking about the Autistic Project Manager, which is me. And I don't think get angry, but I can be seen as someone that can be very assertive. And I think that can be misunderstood. Because I will tend to look you straight in the eye and become very hyper-focused. So autistic anger, we're just going to leave that a little bit at the moment, but there are certainly issues around sensory overload, can be seen as rage. In my case, I don't think rage is mostly the thing because I've been fairly aware. But the real name for this is autistic meltdown. So your system hits capacity, and you get overstimulated, and for some people that looks like rage. And mostly for me, I can pretty much tell when I am about to need a bit of a break. And over the years, I've been able to say to people, "I'm going now." So I don't stick around. I know what my limit is, and I'll go, and I'll either go outside or in some cases, as I've said before, I'll go and sit in a quiet space, and that could be in a bathroom. Now, another one is snapping at the end of a long day reads as overreacting, and there really is nothing worse for an autistic person to be told that you're overreacting, particularly as a project manager. You're generally not going to be overreacting anyway. If you're a senior person, although I've seen plenty of senior managers throw tantrums in my time and they're not even autistic. So what this is known as is restraint collapse. So you've held it together all day, and sometimes just one more thing is likely to push you over the edge. And whilst that certainly happens for most people, for the autistic person who's already struggling with holding it together because of the bright lights and the person next to them that's chewing or twiddling their pen or tapping their keyboard too loud, it's just one more thing that adds to that overload. So consider that next time you see somebody who looks like they're at the end of the day, they just can't cope anymore. So they may be autistic and they have restraint collapse because they've been holding it together all day. And I know in my case, sometimes people will say something, and for me it's the most stupid thing that you could say. It doesn't make any sense, it's unreasonable, whatever it is, and I can mostly restrain myself from bursting out. That is a ridiculous comment that you've made. Not always, but sometimes. Okay, so holding on to things that are fair and equal, and that is a big thing about autistic people. And I talked about this in the last session, where sometimes our focus on justice can almost become an injustice for us. So a lot of autistic people will not drop an unfair moment. And I know for me, I will hold on to that and sometimes not move past that particular issue and keep hyper-focusing on it. So that's something that I've always got to be very aware of. But the real name for that is justice sensitivity. And as I said before in the last session, we talked about the injustice sometimes of the autistic person's need to see justice. So, yes, you can be labelled as somebody that holds a grudge because you're not letting go of it. And I find the best way for someone to help me through that is to talk to me and give me the rational reasons why I should let go of it. But just to dismiss us out of hand and go, oh, you're just being silly or you're just whatever, it's not very good. And it's actually not a good way to treat anybody, I don't think. Now, reacting hard to a last-minute change can be something that's quite common to a lot of people. I don't think so much to me as a project manager because I'm used to change, but I can tell you in my private life that I will expect the day to go a certain way just based on how things normally go. And then at the last minute, if there's a change, I can be pretty good with it, but there are times when I'm not good at it. So I'll say, oh, how come I thought that we were going to do such and such? Now, that can be seen by somebody else as me really, freaking out or being objectionable or even controlling. But I can tell you that it's got nothing to do with control. It's got more to do with I had the train on these tracks and this is where we were going based on everything else that I know for the day and your behaviour, and then all of a sudden it's changed. Now, there's ways and means of talking to everybody about a change in behaviour, and particularly in a personal life. You know, you could say, hey, what did you have in mind for today? I thought I might do X, Y, and Z, instead of just blurting it out. So when that gets a last-minute change that's just blurted out, an autistic person can react hard to that. And even reacting hard can mean that your facial expression is one that can be misconstrued as hard coldness. It's not hard coldness, it's just that we're trying to work out what on earth has happened and trying to make sense of it. And you're just seeing externally us processing all of that stuff. So in my own mind, I've braced for how the day is. Going into an office, potentially, I know there's going to be lots of lights. I know there's going to be a lot of people talking to me. I know I'm going to feel like I'm being grabbed at. And so I braced myself pretty much for that. But there are times, certainly, when you're tired or when you've got an idea of how things are going to work, that you might just react a little bit adversely, particularly at the end of the day. So it's not a control freak tantrum, it's autistic inertia. And that for me is I'm literally stuck to the spot and I'm trying to process. So it just looks like, I'm just not going to budge on it. But that's not necessarily the case. So again, with an autistic person, please consider questioning us gently, rationally, using logic, asking for answers, and setting those questions up with curiosity gently. Now, these are all things that people should do for everybody, but they don't. And I find that the autistic person tends to get blamed because we're the non-communicators, when actually a lot of people don't communicate very well. Now, shutting down when you've got nowhere else to go, and that could seem like you're shutting people down and doing the silent treatment. It's not like ghosting. That's quite a different situation. But just think about this as an overstimulation. Processing power is just absolutely at maximum, and there's nowhere else for us to go except to shut down. So for me, that is, in a meeting where I'll say, I've got to go now. I need a break now. No, I don't want to wait 15 minutes. It's now. And I may go to a quiet space or whatever it is, right? Snapping in a loud, overstimulating space, I don't think that's something that I tend to do. But again, how people perceive us as a autistic person is different to, of course, how we perceive ourselves. So noise and lights, you're just trying to get yourself through it. And people can often say, well, you're always complaining about something. Well, no, the world is not really set up for us, autistic people. It's set up for a lot of people that love being in offices and love talking to people and having girls' night outs and, going down the pub and all that sort of stuff. But it's not necessarily set up for the autistic person. So we may be a little bit different to how you expect. But we're not mad, and we might seem like we're complaining, but we're wanting to protect the space that we need around us that we know works for us. Well, certainly for me, I've managed to work out what works for us now, works for me. Masking fatigue. So it's very, very tiring as an autistic person to just be trying to understand what everybody wants from you. And that means the person in front of you, what is the expression on their face. I am processing all of this stuff. What's the tone of their voice? What are they asking me is almost secondary to everything else. Their posture, the room, how they're looking at me, all of those things. And my mind is going 1,000 miles an hour thinking, what's that look on their face? How do I deal with that? Well, yes, that's them being uncertain. Oh, well, yes, I know I've got to deal with that in this way. So that is very fatiguing. And usually by the time that you get home, for me, if I've been in the office, by about 7:30 at night, I am exhausted. So I could be a little bit grumpy, but I'm exhausted, right? So that is that fatigue, that autistic fatigue. And it can also be described as autistic burnout. And that's certainly something that I have suffered with my entire career until I discovered that I was autistic. So something to think about when you're dealing with somebody who is an autistic person. And as a project manager, you can imagine the load on our time from other people asking us all sorts of questions and interrupting. So, sometimes it will look like there's a bit of an annoyance at being disrupted, but that's mostly because we are hyper-focusing on something, or we're using all of our energy to try and work out what the environment is. The problems of projects are really very inconsequential. For me, it was always dealing with the people and why were they getting annoyed and what were they angry about and what did I do and all of those things, right? So hyper-focus obviously has a cost, and sometimes, that is a disruption to us that it's a little bit like I said before, when we've got an idea of what the day is going to bring and then there's change thrust upon us that we didn't think about. Flat or intense tone when you're upset. And I know that I can sound fairly flat most of the time. My voice is often very flat, monotone. Whilst I can get excited, I tend to talk in this sort of flat tone. And I've often been called, out, people don't like it, and they often will get even more angry because my calmness makes them angry, which is very interesting, but I've experienced that a lot over my years, and I don't know whether they are expecting me to explode at some point, but I generally don't, and the more stressful the situation, the slower that I talk and the lower my voice gets, which seems to even more upset some people. So look, I don't think that autistic people are moody, although we can be told that we are, but I don't really feel that that's the situation for me or for other people. I think it's a matter of trying to understand how other people respond and to give people a little bit of a break If you think that you're not autistic and your way is the best way, then I need to understand why you think that. And don't be surprised if I will come back to you and say, well, I don't agree with you because of these reasons. But I know, as I've said before, when I was finally diagnosed at 62, about 5 years ago, it was just an absolute revelation to me. So what's in a name? A lot. What you call me is something that I really get distressed about when people call me Susan, and my name is Suzanne, and I quite clearly say that to people. So I can get caught up on that, but also just think about it when you're tarring people with a brush that you may not understand. So that's all from me today, the Autistic Project Manager, and loving it. Have a great day.